So
now we've known Brittany for a very long time. I believe we met Brittany for the first time in Davos when we met the whole crew over there from Decentranet. Decentranet. Yeah. McKinney and all those guys, great folks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, Brittany is an international law, diplomacy, and data-driven campaigning professional with significant global experience.
She's got on Brock Pierce's hat.
Maybe she took it from him. Her work involves developing successful strategies for politicians, governments, and corporations to achieve their goals using cutting-edge technology, and she's currently focused on legislative reform for digital assets such as personal data and tokens on the blockchain. The website for her is it's ownyourdata.foundation. You might know her, though, from Stage and Screen. No, you might know her from Cambridge Analytica. She worked for Cambridge Analytica, and she was the one that brought the information to the surface of the scandal that was taking place there. We'd like to give Brittany Kaiser a very warm virtual Blockchain Week welcome. Hey, Brittany, how you doing?
Good to see you. Guys. How are you?
Excellent. So glad that you could make it.
Absolutely. So glad that you invited me. Very happy to be here.
I know a lot of people are eager to hear what you have to say tonight, so we're going to turn it over to you to give your
save the best for last for today. Yeah, you're the ending keynote of day 2, which was action packed, full of ladies today.
Way to insult the rest of our speakers, Travis. That was great.
Sorry to the rest of them.
I was going to say that is a massive compliment because I absolutely adore everybody that you had speaking today and got to tune in for some of it. So I'm very pleased to be capping it off for the evening.
Take it away, Brittany.
Perfect. Wonderful. Well, good evening, everyone. So happy to see you guys here. I wish that we could all be in person together. I can't tell you how much I miss being at blockchain conferences around the world with all of our community, being able to be together. I really miss that energy. So I hope you can feel my energy coming to you through the screen. And I'm so happy that this got organized. So I wanted to tell you, I suppose this evening a little bit more about my journey, you know, what I do, what I'm up to, and really how I got here. So for those of you guys that have never met me before, I'm Brittany Kaiser. I am a data rights activist. So now what does that mean? That means I spend a lot of time thinking about your privacy, about data protection, about technology and laws and regulations that can help protect that. And therefore, I spend a lot of time thinking about and working and advising in the blockchain space, because I really see distributed ledger technology as the answer to a lot of the problems that traditional technology has built. And by that, I really mean over the past couple decades, we've built ourselves a surveillance state, a kleptocracy. And I do see a lot of blockchain solutions as a way to resecure our independence, our freedom, and to have a much more viable and successful digital future. Now that all of a sudden, all of us around the world are leading a completely virtual life. I didn't think it would accelerate this quickly, but now I think everybody thinks about the data that they're producing every day and their privacy and how to protect themselves while leading a fully digital life. So I suppose to tell you a little bit more about how I got here, I should start from where I got into tech in the first place. And that's because I really always have believed that technology is something that can really help human beings solve a lot of the world's greatest problems. I always saw technology as an inherent good. And that started when I was a young political activist in high school, volunteering for the Howard Dean campaign, and then John Kerry, then the DNC. And I ended up on Barack Obama's first presidential campaign. I joined in 2007, and my first assignment was to create Barack Obama's Facebook page and work on the very small team, which was called New Media at the time, that was working to develop what data-driven social media strategy is today. We invented that for the first time. How could you collect data from social media and use that to inform communications. What does that actually look like? How can you gather data to start building rudimentary algorithms to understand people better? How do you collect data to understand what people care about? What's important?
Well, Brittany, did you luck up on us? This
Bigger
would be,
than just themselves.
there you go. Wait, you locked up for just a second. That was a little glitch, but you're back.
Okay. I don't know what you guys missed, but it was just a little bit of an overview of the beginning of data collection on social media that we were doing on the Obama campaign. In the beginning, it was rudimentary, but over many years, obviously, I started to develop a bigger understanding of what data collection meant and how you could use technology to drive social good and to solve a lot of the world's greatest problems. I was studying as a human rights lawyer and therefore was doing a lot of human rights activism, working for United Nations departments, NGOs like Amnesty International, where again, we were using social media in order to understand how we could collect data to better engage people, to get involved in huge global activism campaigns, to get people to do grassroots activism in their communities on the local level, and making sure that we could, again, use technology to get people involved in something so important. Now, over the many years that I was working in the nonprofit and charity sector with tech, I started writing my PhD on preventive diplomacy. In human rights law, what that means is how can you understand what is going to happen before it does? Therefore, if you guys are more technical, how can you build advanced predictive algorithms that will tell you that a crisis or a war is going to happen before it does? And what that really looks like is large-scale data collection that is supposed to be for human good, to try to prevent human suffering. And that's what I really saw it as. I saw data collection as something that was inherently good. Now, during this time, no one at my law school could teach me anything about advanced predictive data analytics. So I joined a company that you've probably heard of, and maybe that's the reason you know me, a company called Cambridge Analytica. Now, I was pretty excited about what they were doing with data around the world, and I very quickly started to learn about what they were doing to collect information about people from your attitudes, your behaviors, your purchasing history, your online browsing, who you're interacting with, your location data, to develop a very good understanding about everybody, and therefore be able to put you into a category of, for instance, somebody that could be driven to donate to a good cause, or someone that just wants to perhaps try a new brand of toothpaste, or somebody that wants to, you know, come out and vote, and how do you drive them to do those things? And over the years that I was at this company called Cambridge Analytica, I suppose I started to have more of my own awakening about what data collection really means. For me, I was starting to see red flags when I was negotiating with big data brokers that told me how much information they really had on people, how much tracking and tracing they had done, what they had hidden in their terms and conditions in order to get people to agree to give away more of that data. And I started to really think, wow, I didn't realize that a company like this even existed, let alone that they know everything about me. And they're selling my personal information to anybody that has the money to buy it. And a lot of these, what they're called, are big data aggregation companies like Experian, Infogroup, Axiom. These are companies that their entire business model is either collecting or purchasing or licensing data from different sources, and then matching that, perhaps aggregating it, or even selling the raw data on to other people. I started to see what a big global business this was, that it wasn't simply providing basic information for us to have more successful advertising or political campaigns, that it was really full-scale surveillance, and that I, as an individual or anyone else in these data sets, was pretty much unaware of what was being sold, what was being traded around the world about us, and how much of that information actually existed. So I started to think, well, there's probably better ways to do this. I mean, we could be more transparent with people. We could very smart and highly paid data scientists were spending so much of their time just matching different data sets to each other and trying to verify, for instance, if there's 4 or 5 data sets about me and a couple of them say I'm a woman, a couple of them say I'm a man, you're going to pay a lot of money for somebody to figure that out instead of just perhaps asking me what is the real data about me. And I started to feel that working at a big data analytics company was not something that was true to myself. I'm an activist. I care about individual rights. I care about using technology for good. And the direction that this was going was not what was really that interesting for me. So I decided to leave Cambridge Analytica while I had been a member of the blockchain community for, I suppose, full-time for nearly 9 months. When I decided to leave Cambridge, I had decided to get involved in advising some blockchain companies that were specifically working on how you could secure people's individual data, how you could give them more transparency into what was being collected, and how people would be able to monetize their own data for themselves. So one of the first platforms I was advising, Siglo, they had spent very many years building out a platform where people's data could be monetized, and specifically that was going to pay your internet bill, your phone bill, in areas where people had never really been able to afford connectivity before. And that's where I started to think, well, you know what, blockchain makes a lot of sense to me. Instead of these random companies being able to make millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars off of our data, why can't we start investing in and building in platforms where we have full control over what's being collected, where it's going, how it's being used, and therefore, if it's being monetized, that we have the ability to take control of those assets to empower ourselves. You know, it doesn't really make any sense to me that there are so many companies worth hundreds of billions of dollars, or some of them dipping into the trillions of dollars, where most of that value is data that has been collected from us. I mean, it's our human value that empowers those companies to have that valuation. And I didn't think about it for most of the years that I was at Cambridge, but once I started to think really hard about it and go to blockchain conferences and be involved in the community and learn about some of the platforms that were being built, this is throughout 2017, I started to be inspired to think, okay, well, you know, we can solve some of these problems of privacy and data collection. We do have a huge opportunity here to change things. And so I left Cambridge Analytica, and the first thing that I did was fly to Wyoming. I hope some of you guys got to see the amazing Caitlin Long speaking earlier today. I found out, I would say, a week before I quit Cambridge Analytica that the first ever what I like to call blockchain positive laws were introduced to Congress in the state of Wyoming. And I have, I suppose, too many law degrees and have spent a lot of time thinking about laws and regulation and what we could possibly do to enshrine data protection or digital asset management and privacy protocols or data ownership mechanisms into the law. What does that look like? So I flew to Wyoming because a lovely gentleman by the name of Brock Pierce told me about what Caitlin Long was doing there with Representative Tyler Lindholm and a lot of the other legislators in Wyoming, and I got really excited. So I quit Cambridge, flew to Wyoming, and was absolutely in awe of some of the legislative infrastructure that they had built there. You know, everything from laws that say your digital assets are your intangible personal property, where you actually have ownership over that, to looking at what it means to be a custodian, a third-party custodian of somebody else's assets, and the fiduciary responsibility that you should have to individuals.
Oh, got another little hiccup there, Brittany. Just missed the last 20 seconds.
Okay. So I'm not sure exactly where we were, but I was talking about some of my favorite concepts that came out of the first round of Wyoming legislation. And I would say some of my favorites are one, that your digital assets are your intangible personal property. So you own your digital assets. And at this time, we're not really talking about personal data per se. We're talking about our blockchain tokens, which are really just encrypted blocks of data, right? We're talking about what that means when I am not holding my digital assets. If someone else is holding them for me, then there's now laws that say that they have a duty to protect my assets because I own them, they are my property. And if someone else is a custodian of my property, then they have what's called a fiduciary responsibility to me to take care of my property before they think about profits for their shareholders. Something that I think a lot of big tech companies like Facebook could learn a lot from. Now, ever since the first round of Wyoming legislation got put in, I mean, I spent many weeks helping fly people in and out of Wyoming, where we sat in Congress to explain why blockchain technology was so important to people. And once we started to get those laws passed, there started to be kind of an awakening with not just different states in the US and federal government, but other countries around the world started to look at some of this and think, you know, not only does the blockchain and crypto community need common sense laws and regulations that allow us to innovate, but we also need protections. We need to have an understanding of what we're allowed to build, what that looks like, and how we protect individuals as they are using these technologies. How do we protect all of the assets that we are building and producing here too? And that became my next biggest crusade. About, I would say, maybe 6 weeks after I left Wyoming, I came to South by Southwest, where I think I did my first full Bad Crypto podcast interview. I had just come from Wyoming, show up in Austin, and I meet these incredible guys that are so lovely to be hosting us this evening. And we start talking about, you know, Wyoming and what this is going to mean for the future of this industry, and how it's going to legitimize this new emerging technology and make sure that it's no longer fringe and emerging, but actually blossoming into what will be one of the next biggest asset classes, and defining that and giving us a roadmap for innovation and building our projects. Now, the week after that, I went to Restart Week in Puerto Rico, which was one of the biggest blockchain conferences, so to say, or gathering of the crypto community from around the world. And I was so inspired by so many of the people that I had met there and what they were building and what types of social impact all of these blockchain projects were going to cause, that I decided to become a whistleblower on the data industry. It was very obvious to me, being surrounded by inspirational entrepreneurs that were wanting to make a real positive impact in the world, that there were a lot of massive problems in the big tech industries that needed to be solved. So I left Restart Week and flew to San Francisco to start working with The Guardian to describe to them what I knew about Facebook and Cambridge Analytica and what had happened in the 2016 elections and what that actually really means. So if you guys have seen any of my talks before, if you've seen some of my whistleblowing interviews, it really boils down to a few basic concepts that I have been working so hard to raise awareness about around the world. And that's really the fact that the amount of data that we're producing today, you know, every single day we're producing exponentially more, yet until really the past 2 years, we haven't had comprehensive legislative or regulatory frameworks to understand what that means or to have any rights or transparency into that at all. So what the problems that we're experiencing today, where I think there's a new privacy scandal sometimes every few days, this is really the tip of the iceberg. And I think it's really important for everyone to understand how we're protected and how we're not. I'll do this quickly because I know we were a little bit over time, and you know, if anyone has any questions, I'd like to be open to that as well. But I think the most important concepts or the most important problems that are being solved by a lot of new blockchain tech have to specifically do with ownership and data as your property. And so what I really mean by that, in order to land the plane for you, it means that instead of our data just being taken from us, where we are agreeing to terms and conditions that we are not reading, we have no idea where our data is going and who's going to have access to it and how it's going to be used. Instead, as some of the laws say in Wyoming, we would have ownership of our intangible digital assets. And so I suppose the way that I see this in the future is like an Airbnb model. So if someone wants to use your property, your house on Airbnb, they tell you who they are, what they're going to use it for, how long they're going to use it, and you agree on a price before you hand away the keys. With distributed ledger technology, with digital identity, especially with advanced smart contracting, we are going to see a future where, for instance, I can tell you that I'm comfortable with you collecting data about my purchasing habits, my political habits, what I read online. Maybe I'm not comfortable with sharing my location data. And for the data sets I decide to share, I can say I'm comfortable with these going to advertisers, but maybe not to political parties. And I'm happy for my data to be monetized for these purposes, but not for those. And I really think that those controls really come, again, with ownership. And also transparency and opt-in. If we understand what's being collected about us because we've agreed to it, then we can opt into our data being used for certain purposes and not for others. So those permission structures and tracking and traceability are incredibly important as well, to be able to see where our data has gone, where it's being accessed, where it's not being accessed, and be able to decide ourselves what we're giving permissions to is really a core capability of a lot of the new platforms that I see coming out. And then monetization rates. You know, if I am going to own my data, if I want a piece of the pie of all of the companies around the world that are making money off of it every day, then you know, I need to have rights to either a dividend of that, or I need to have access to a platform where I'm going to see where all of my opportunities to monetize my data and decide what I'm comfortable with and what I'm not. And the reason why I talk about this so much is because I really do see data as the great equalizer. You know, Mark Zuckerberg lies to us and tells us that our data is only worth $17 per quarter. I mean, for some people around the world, $17 per quarter would still be completely life-changing. So let's just start there with realizing and accepting that. But if we are building, you know, empowerment tools of the future, there are some very exciting projects. I don't know if you guys have seen rainfall yet from my favorite guys at SVBS. But we're looking at building what would be an empowerment tool to decide where you want to earn money from your own human value, just the data that you're producing every day already that's being taken from you and you're not really getting an equal value exchange. I really do see the opportunities for us to share even more data than we do right now, as long as we are comfortable with knowing where it's going and what it's being used for. I really do believe in data science and artificial intelligence, and I think that data science and AI will solve a lot of the world's biggest problems. They'll make sure that we don't have cancer and diabetes in the future. It's going to make sure that we don't get in traffic accidents anymore. So I don't want everyone to just revert to privacy and not share anything. I want us to feel like our data is secure, like we have ownership.
Little glitch there in the matrix, right in the middle of saying something
Right now,
poignant.
in order to.
There you go. We glitched again for a moment, right in the middle of something poignant, but it was just for a few seconds.
Okay, where did I stop?
Really just 10 seconds ago.
Okay, great. So yeah, I was just saying that the reason why I think figuring out both our legislative and regulatory structures that allow this to be possible, as well as building innovative, new, decentralized technologies, it goes alongside also a digitally literate population. You know, we need to be creating new laws and regulations. We need to be educating people about how to protect themselves, and we need to be building platforms that enable that, because I really do believe that AI and data science are going to be able to enable us to have even better lives than we already have today. A lot of the work that I'm doing right now that contributes to that, which anyone that is interested in the privacy, data protection, data ownership space, we'd love to have you on board. One of, oh.
There's your website. I just
put perfect. Yeah. So
ownyourdata.foundation.
Yes. So we started the Own Your Data Foundation in order to do digital literacy training. Right now we're concentrating on K through 12. We're teaching kids how to protect themselves online. We're teaching parents and teachers how to do that so that everybody understands what their data rights are, basic cybersecurity protocols, media literacy, so you can spot fake news and disinformation. How can you have a more ethical relationship with technology, use emotional intelligence on social media? All of these things we were never before taught in schools, but we are now. So I'm doing a lot of that work, as well as working with the Digital Asset Trade Association data, which we founded a couple of years ago in order to assist with what was going on in Wyoming, and then to help other states and countries start to implement new blockchain legislation and data protection and privacy laws as well. So if you want to get involved in either of those, please check out ownyourdata.foundation. We have the ability on there for you to talk about partnerships, to volunteer, to get involved in other ways. So please do write into us. You can write to info@ownyourdata.foundation. And yeah, I suppose just a closing comment, which is that I just love all of you guys so much. Like, being a part of the blockchain and crypto community has been such an important part of my life. I'm currently broadcasting live from the new Crypto Castle Hollywood, which is the third iteration of blockchain co-living, co-working spaces started by Jeremy Gardner, one of my roommates. He started the one in San Francisco, which I'm sure a lot of you guys have been to, the one in Miami, and now we have one here in the Hollywood Hills. So if you guys are in LA when it becomes socially acceptable again to socialize in person, we would love to have you over here. And we're also accepting applications for memberships if you live and work in LA part of the time, traveling from other cities. Again, when that happens. But I hope this is all going to open up pretty soon and we can see each other in person again. But for now, I suppose virtually signing off, or open to any of your questions, guys.
Well, you know, when we do travel again and make it to LA, we need to do some interviews at the Crypto Castle, Mr. Travis Wright.
Yes, please.
That sounds like a great idea. Speaking of interviews, I believe you're going to be interviewing with Cointelegraph now after this.
I am.
Congratulations.
So still waiting for me.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. This is really great information. You did not disappoint. We appreciate your passion and your sincerity, you know, in what you're trying to accomplish here. So we encourage everybody to go to ownyourdata.foundation, see how you can get involved in this this mission, because it does concern you. It concerns me. It concerns all of us. And we've got to do something to make sure that the leviathans of the world don't use us.
It's been a common theme today, even like when Dima from Hacking was showing us all of our data breaches all over the place and all of our passwords that are all over, they've been hacked. It's amazing. Like all of our data unwillingly has been sprinkled like on the cupcakes of the world without our permission.
Cupcakes of the world.
I'm going to have to use that one next time.
Thanks, Brittany. We don't want to keep Cointelegraph waiting. We know they're waiting to speak with you, and we really appreciate you coming on.
Of course. Good to see you guys again.
Thank you so much.
Hopefully in person soon.
Bye-bye. Take care.